Today on Legally Us, Prince Harry takes the stand and Brad Pitt is going after Angelina Jolie. Plus, Teresa Giudice's tax problems, an actor's 13-year-old daughter files a restraining order, and Pete Davidson's call to PETA. We've got that plus so much more on today's Legally Us. Hey everyone, welcome to Legally Us. I'm Christina. That's, of course, Neama Rahmani, President and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Hi, Neama. How are you?
Great, Christina. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Another week, another Prince Harry story. So let's dive right into it because Prince Harry, as we know, he testified in his trial against the publisher of the Daily Mail one day after he did not appear in court to mark the beginning of the trial. So he had a 55-page written witness statement that was released as he took the stand. And the document includes mentions of his mother, Princess Diana, Prince William, his exes, Caroline Flack, Chelsea Davy, and Natalie Pinkman. So throughout the lengthy document, he cites several stories that were published over the years, and he detailed having trust issues within his inner circle over the leaks, including him and his brother. He said that William and I would often speak over the phone and regularly left voicemails for one another containing very private and sensitive information about our private family and personal lives. They would discuss personal relationships, education, careers, and a lot of other things through telephone and voicemails. He also talked about the section of Princess Diana, saying that he was shocked, disgusted, and appalled when he was shown by solicitors 3 handwritten letters from her to well-known television personality Michael Barrymore. He detailed unusual mobile activity he experienced over the years. And as I said, this came after Harry missed the first day of trial due to his daughter's birthday, which the judge said he was surprised by. So in this 55-page witness testimony, does it prove that the Daily Mail publishers did hack Harry's phone?
Well, Christina, it does. Not necessarily because of the document that was submitted, but because the Daily Mail has essentially admitted liability. They've said we're at fault. This trial really is a question of damages, how much Prince Harry and his brother are owed.
Right. And so based on this, does it appear that Harry does have a strong case and that he will be, paid handsomely, I guess, from this?
I think so. And this is one of the ways that U.S. laws differ from the U.K. In the United States, we have hearsay laws, which means you can't submit those types of affidavits or declarations. Generally speaking, the witness has to take the stand and testify. But in the UK, it's a little bit easier to get some of this evidence in. So the prince was able to submit that written statement, but also take the stand and testify. In the US, you usually need that live testimony. Got
it. So this 55-page document did help his case substantially.
It did. And I'm sure he prepared it with the help of his lawyers to really show how he was affected by this hacking, how personal this information was. I mean, obviously talking about Princess Diana, his hopes and dreams, his fears. I mean, these are things that I don't care who you are, a former member of the royal family or an ordinary Joe Schmo, you don't want the public to know.
Yeah, well, he basically said that the press really did, turn him into this villain, kind of created this narrative about him. And it seems like he wants maybe not only to be paid, but for the Daily Mail to kind of fess up and own their responsibility in all this.
I think so. I think the Daily Mail did try to accept responsibility to sort of lessen the blow. But, you never know what a judge is going to do. But I would expect that he will be awarded significant damages because this is pretty outrageous, their conduct.
Right. Did it look bad that Harry was not in attendance the first day of this trial? I know the judge said that he was surprised by this. Would a U.S. court treat that differently as opposed to a UK court?
I think so, Christina. Again, another way that the two systems are different. Here, we have jury trials in these types of cases, defamation cases. Obviously, we saw that with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. In the UK, you're going to get a bench trial, which means a judge is going to make the decision. Jurors tend to be less forgiving when someone doesn't show up to court, right? Judges, handle these cases every day. So, the judge may give the prince a pass, especially if he missed day one because of his daughter's birthday. But jurors, they tend not to be as forgiving.
No, definitely not. So how do you foresee this trial ending? What do you think is going to happen?
My prediction is that the prince is going to get a significant award in terms of pounds there in the UK. Because again, this is pretty bad conduct. There was a whole investigation that was conducted years ago there in the UK. But this really crosses the line in terms of reporting, hacking someone's phone. That's something that's unlawful. You're not talking about, being aggressive and going too far and maybe chasing someone out. This is a crime here in the United States. It would be a felony. So I expect the judge to punish the Daily Mail and reward Prince Harry handsomely.
All right, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Well, this is an interesting story. So Ian Grufford's 13-year-old daughter, Ella, filed a restraining order against both he and his girlfriend. So the teenager who he shares with his estranged wife, Alice Evans, filed the case under domestic violence prevention in court on May 31st. A hearing is set for June 23rd. She has applied for civil harassment protection from his girlfriend, Bianca Wallace, as well. So the request was filed following an incident at he and Wallace's home in Los Angeles while Ella and her sister Leslie, who was 9, were visiting. So he has been in a very long divorce battle with the daughter's mother. They were married back in 2007, filed for divorce in March of 2021. And he said when all this kind of went down, she said that the estranged wife said that he is leaving his family starting next week. It seems like she was kind of totally blindsided by this. So in December of 2022, Grufford filed that he needed to sell their La Jolla home as they could no longer afford the almost $7,000 a month expense. So it seems like maybe they were in some financial issues as well. He also has a restraining order against Evans, preventing her from disparaging him or Wallace on social media. So this is really nasty. So how is a 13-year-old able to file a restraining order?
Yeah, Christina, this is one of the worst divorces we've seen recently. And the way it works is the court will appoint a guardian ad litem. That's someone that's going to represent the child's interest and actually help him or her, in this case, Ella, file that restraining order. And imagine how bad do things have to be? I mean, obviously, we've seen restraining orders in between the ex-spouses, but when your child is getting a restraining order from you, and I mean, we've covered these restraining orders here on Legally Us. I mean, there are no contact orders. You can't have any contact with your child. You can't communicate with them through an intermediary. You usually have to stay 100 yards apart, and they can last years. So this is really, really serious stuff. So, but as far as the legal mechanism works, it's either a family law judge or a dependency court judge who's going to assign that guardian to act on Ella's behalf. And that's probably what happened here. And
so her mother can't act as her guardian in this situation, can she?
Well, the mother can, but it seems like, Ella doesn't want to have anything to do with any of them, right? So, yeah, either parent can act as a guardian on behalf of the child and pursue any type of case, right? It can be a civil lawsuit or a civil restraining order. But in this type of case, because you're dealing with alleged harassment from mom, dad, and a girlfriend, it would have to be an independent guardian.
Right. It seems like you don't really hear too much about children filing restraining orders. It's more of like an emancipation from the family. Do you believe that that's probably the next steps in this case as well?
I do. And, not only the child, a very young child, 13 years old, that's very young. But, if a child doesn't want to have anything to do with their parents, I mean, I would expect an adoption or an emancipation to be on the horizon, because this is not something that's going to be sustainable long term, because she is still a minor and she needs someone to care for her.
Right. And then so when this goes to trial on June 23rd, or when it goes to presented before a judge, do you foresee this restraining order being a permanent restraining order? What's kind of the next steps in this one?
Yeah, I wouldn't. The standard is the best interest of the child. And this is such a difficult situation for the judge to deal with. I mean, he or she's going to say, okay, where does Ella belong? Where's the best placement for her? And is it really suitable for her to have no contact with her parents? I mean, that's pretty extreme. Anything's certainly possible. But if I were the judge, I probably wouldn't go that far. I would send the parents to some counseling, maybe domestic violence classes if violence is an issue. Usually there's a presumption that reunification is appropriate, which means if the child is taken away for some period of time, that parental rights aren't terminated. Because once they're terminated, it's like you never had the child. So I would expect some sort of reunification to be ordered in this case.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so he also has a restraining order against his ex as well. How is that different from like a gag order? Because his seems to focus on her making disparaging comments, remarks, versus physical interaction. So what's kind of the difference between the two of them?
Yeah, so restraining order generally is a stay away order. You stay away from the person, their place of business, their home, their vehicle. You just got to stay away, physically stay away. And also not to communicate with them either directly or through any intermediaries. It doesn't matter if it's phone, text, email. You just don't go near them, don't communicate with them. A gag order is different. A gag order prevents a party to a case from saying anything about the case or the parties about the case. So whereas a restraining order, let's say you and I had a restraining order, I couldn't communicate with you. But if there was a gag order, I couldn't even talk about you to third parties and say disparaging things.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's move on over to Teresa Giudice, because she has steadily been making progress to settle her debts after she was served a $17,000 tax lien. So her attorney said Ms. Giudice has been aware of her tax obligations for years and makes significant timely monthly payments towards her outstanding tax liabilities, and will continue to do so until those liabilities no longer exist. So according to court documents obtained by Us Weekly, she was notified about the lien last month. She has an unpaid balance of over $1 million. And of course, we know she went to jail. She was indicted on, her and her ex-husband, Joe Giudice, were indicted on multiple counts of tax fraud back in 2013. She was there for 11 months while he served 41 months behind bars and then was deported to Italy. So how do you not realize that you have a $17,000 tax lien when you went to jail for tax fraud?
Seriously, Christina. And when you're talking about tax cases, there's sort of three levels in increasing severity. The first is, we all know, it's an audit, right? It's an administrative process. The second is a civil case where the IRS sues you civilly. And the worst, of course, is a criminal case where the Department of Justice prosecutes you. And tax law is one of the few areas of law that you actually have to generally know what you're doing is unlawful before you're prosecuted criminally. Normally, ignorance of the law isn't a defense. So here's someone that's had a history of tax problems and still continues to have tax problems. And we all know that Uncle Sam gets paid first. You can have multiple liens on your house. You can have a mortgage, this, that. Generally, those tax liens, those are first in line. So you've got to take care of them.
So is this just negligence on her part, or is she having bad advice from people, bad advisors? What do you think is the case here?
Yeah, Christina, I have no idea what she's thinking or who's telling her. Clearly, she has a lawyer. Sometimes people don't follow their lawyer's advice. Sometimes they get bad advice. But I mean, Teresa, your husband already got deported. I mean, these are serious offenses. I mean, you gotta take these tax issues seriously, right, especially when you're under the radar.
I was going to say she's probably high alert, I would imagine, after being arrested for this, went to jail for this. I'm sure people are watching.
Exactly. And when it comes to these tax cases, the IRS doesn't have the resources to go after everyone. So it's well known that they'll take some high profile individuals, make an example of them to send a message to deter other people from doing so. So she's got to be a lot more careful given who she is and her past criminal history. Right.
But since she's making the timely payments, should she be worried about history repeating itself, or is she okay?
Yeah, as long as you have some sort of either court-ordered restitution or some sort of agreement with the IRS and you're making payments, you should be okay. One of the good things about this country is if you have a debt, if it's a civil debt, generally speaking, you don't go to jail if you don't pay that debt. So as long as you're kind of complying, you're not knowingly and intentionally violating the law, committing additional crimes, she should be okay.
All right, she should be all right. Okay, well, moving on to a case that we've been talking about for a very long time. Brad Pitt alleged that his ex-wife, Angelina Jolie, secretly sold his stakes in their winery as payback for their custody battle. So he claimed that Angelina previously agreed that neither should sell their share in the Chateau Miraval without the other's approval. Well, in court documents obtained by Us Weekly, he alleged that Jolie decided she wanted to sell her share in the property when they were finalizing their divorce in 2019, as they began buyout negotiations so that Brad could purchase her stake. So according to Brad, those negotiations fell through after they began their custody battle. He went on to allege that Angelina specifically chose Yuri Scheffler. He is the owner of Denute del Mundo, which is part of a Russia-affiliated spirits conglomerate. And this did not go over well at all. He did not want to be in business with this person due to his background. And the filing goes on to allege that vindictively, Angelina gave Brad a chance to match, that she never gave him a chance to match the offer, and did this behind his back. So they've gone back and forth about this for a very long time. We've talked about this before. But what does this mean in this latest development of this case?
Yeah, this is potentially one of the biggest cases that we're covering here on Legally. This is a case that I can see going to trial because, I mean, there's so many allegations. Obviously, you have family law, you got custody, there's allegations of abuse, and obviously you have a very valuable chateau that the two are fighting over. So, when you're analyzing this case, this is something that really should have been handled in the divorce, but wasn't. The two stayed as business partners. And it's pretty well established that as business partners, one partner can sell his or her share to a third party. unless there's an agreement for them not to do so. So what Brad is arguing here is there was an agreement. It seems like it's the handwritten, back of the napkin type agreement where Angelina said, I wouldn't do it. But also what he's arguing here is, well, even if Angelina could sell to a third party, he had a right of first refusal. He could match any offer. And Angelina didn't give him the opportunity to do so.
Is there what's Brad hoping to gain by this? Because it doesn't seem like he's going to get the opportunity to buy this person out. So is he seeking damages? Is he trying to get his share back for this? What's he trying to get from Angelina?
Yeah, Brad is trying to unwind the sale. That would be an ideal outcome for Brad and his attorneys, right? He wants the entire chateau to himself, or at least the opportunity to buy out Angelina. The second best result would be to get some damages for her, to get some money. But obviously, I mean, this is his estate. This is where he got married. Apparently, he wants to retire there. I don't think he wants to be sharing it or have a Russian oligarch as a roommate.
Yeah. Do you foresee that happening? Have you ever heard of somebody like reversing a sale like this?
It's possible if it's some sort of fraudulent transfer or they had an agreement and she breached the agreement, a court may unwind the deal. So this is something that, judges and juries are going to have to decide when there's this type of dispute. But sometimes when the court can't, they might order just a sale. They might auction it off to a third party and have everyone just be paid out. That's not one of those situations where you're a kid and you draw a line in the middle of the room with your siblings. It's hard if you're in some sort of dispute with a co-owner of a big property like this.
And like you said, it's been going on for years. So it definitely seems like this is probably going to go to trial because the two of them are just not going to agree.
I think so. I mean, you have like allegations related to the FBI, and there's just so much going on in this case. And again, just my prediction, and this may end up being the next Johnny Depp Amber Heard type case because these two don't like each other. There's a lot of money at stake. The allegations are serious, and I don't see a resolution happening anytime soon.
No, it's going to get really, as we thought it was nasty to begin with, it's going to get even worse. So this was interesting. So Pete Davidson addressed a voicemail that he left for PETA after the organization slammed him for buying a dog from a pet store. He told TMZ that he wanted a specific hypoallergenic dog because he's allergic to most breeds. So that's why he couldn't adopt from a pet shelter. So he added that he got a Cavapoo puppy, and it was for his mom, whose dog died earlier this year. So after the video appeared online, a spokesperson for PETA condemned his decision to purchase a pet rather than adopt from a shelter. Well, he left a very nasty voicemail to this woman at PETA saying, I just want to let you know I'm severely allergic to dogs, so I have to get a specific breed. I'm only not allergic to Cavapoos and those type of dogs. And my mom's effing dog, who was 2 years old, died a week prior. He went on to throw in a lot of expletives in this one. But did the person who leaked this phone call, did they do themselves a disservice by leaking it in any way? Or is this nothing to worry about? Because you can't really release somebody's voicemail like this, can you?
It really comes down to whether Pete Davidson had a reasonable expectation of privacy. So we talked about Prince Harry and his phone being hacked. Of course, he can expect that his private conversations, his text messages will remain private, that no one's going to hack into his phone. But that expectation goes out the door when you leave someone a voicemail or you send them a text message. That third party, they can share it with others. So when you're talking about voicemails or screenshots, be careful about what you say, because usually the person you're sharing it with can share it with others, put it out there. Now, obviously there are exceptions if it's, your lawyer or your doctor and you expect that type of communication to be private. But if you're leaving a nasty gram for someone that you don't like, that person will be able to share it with others.
Interesting. And PETA can't sue for like harassment just for one voicemail, correct? It would have to be over multiple times.
No, they can't. Yeah. And usually these harassment laws do have a sort of a floor. You need to contact the person multiple times and they have to ask you to stop. So in this case, PETA, sort of fired the first shot. Pete Davidson responded, so this wouldn't necessarily be harassment.
Yeah, seems like it. Hopefully, everybody could just move on after this one.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Neama, thank you so much for breaking all down everything as always, and we will catch you next week.
Thanks so much, Christina. See you next week.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below, and visit usmagazine.com.